Hey Duran, can you hear me? Hey, can you hear the music and can you hear me? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Sunday Soup. This is Phoenix Love of a Healer's Haven. Healer's Haven offers therapeutic interventions and healing tools to help you to heal your mind, body, soul, and spirit so you can live a purpose-driven life. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday evening. I hope everybody had a beautiful and blessed day. Let's see, where do I start? So much. This has been an interesting week. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to go, and what I like to say to do is recharge, refuel, reset by just going away. I was in Atlanta at just an amazing conference, Dr. Cindy Trim Ministries. Hey Sanji, thanks for joining. And it was her empowerment summit that she does every year. And this year was called End Your Year Strong. And when I say it was power-packed with speakers, pastors, ministers, leadership gurus, you name it, praise dance, fabulous worship. I mean, it was just amazing. And it was 3 days. They had midnight prayer, which that's my favorite. So we did a 2-hour jam-packed, praying and declaring and decreeing what we are going to have, and saying it with intention and expectancy for 2018 and beyond. And when I say it was such a move of God over the weekend, it's like I'm still, and I talk about it, it just takes my breath away. But reason why I'm, Valencia, hey sis, thanks for joining. I'm starting with that to lead into my talk tonight, which is about capacity. And listen, if there's anybody that you know that is just on their mission, on their purpose, or just trying to figure things out, and they're want to end this year powerfully, and just on purpose, and they are just much like myself, and I think like many of us, especially women, we tend to take on a lot in our lives, and we're always juggling, work and taking care of children, maybe taking care of our parents. Please invite them, tag them, and have them join this, because capacity is something that we really don't talk about it in that sense. But I'm going to get into it, and I really want to hear from, those of you that are on this live, and get your impact as well, get your input, as well, because it's a very important topic that, again, we kind of talk around it, but we don't talk about it in the sense of capacity. And the other piece that I want to, let me just backtrack a little bit. I did a post, I believe, yesterday, where it said 45 by 45. About 5 years ago, I did some post on Facebook that led up to my 40th birthday. So yes, I'm telling my age, which I proudly do, because, it's all about how you look and feel and come into your birthday and each year. But this year will be my 45th year. So I'm doing 45 messages by 45. I'm a little off schedule, so, I'm probably going to have multiple posts, as well as videos. So this is the first of the 45 by 45. And when I did the 40 by 45 years ago, it was such a blessing to people, to the point where people still talk about it and ask me about it to this day. Just really just different topics and messages. And I'm going to share something else, that 40 by 40 actually was sort of like the prelude to my book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, which I'm going to be speaking a little bit from that book tonight. So it's amazing, and it all ties into, my talk tonight, as well as just everything that the work that I do, what it's all about, which is helping those to heal mind, body, soul, and spirit, so that you can live a purpose-driven life. And which is what my book is about, and everything I do, and these speaking engagements, workshops, training, is really all about that. You never know when you're putting messages out there, whether it's on Facebook or it's on Instagram, or you're doing speaking or training or on your jobs. You never know what that may evolve into. A lot of times we do things, and we do it sort of like unconsciously. But the season we're in now, you need to do everything intentionally and consciously. Again, that's part of being on purpose. So when I was doing those 40 by 40, those were messages that God had downloaded into me to share with the world, but not knowing that would soon become a book. And I didn't know that at the time, but it did. So it was really, a lot of those messages just ended up being flushed out more, of course, and becoming the 50 excerpts that are in my book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, Your Journey to Awakening Your Calling. So let's get right into it. Oh, thank you, Sanji. So capacity. When I think about capacity, I want us to think about our bodies, our minds, our whole being as a vessel, okay? So this is a vessel, God put us, He created us, He molded us, He shaped us, And he put us on this earth for a reason, right? Each of us have our reason for being here, and those reasons are all different according to how we were designed and created. So as a vessel, just like any other vessel, if you have a bucket or if you have a bottle, everything has a capacity, right? We're no different. We have a certain capacity. We have a certain level of what can actually be put into us, right? So, of course, we want to put the best in. We want to be our best, and we want to be able to give our best. But in order to be our best, we have to make sure that everything that's coming in our eye gates, our ear gates, our environments that we spend time in, the people that we're around, all of that needs to be positive, and it needs to be lined up with our divine purpose, okay? And sometimes some people are in a place, everybody's in different places. Some people are in a place where they're not really sure what their divine purpose is. But, even if you're not sure, you want to surround yourself with the right people and be in the right type of environments. Now, sometimes, we have to work certain jobs. We have to make money, right? We understand that. And so sometimes you find yourself in situations, even with our relationships, that may not be aligned with our purpose, or it may not be the best, for us at the time. So in those situations, and, again, I'm no different, sometimes like currently, and I'm going to be a little transparent on this talk, because I think in order for me to drive home the point, I do have to share a little bit of me, which I don't mind. I, just like you and anybody else, I have my challenges. It's just because I'm a holistic therapist and I have training and, I help people for a living doesn't mean that I don't have my challenges as well, because I do. So what happens sometimes, we find ourselves in these situations where we have to be somewhere. Whether it's let's use work, for example. We're at these jobs, and we may not particularly care for the jobs, or the environment's not right for us. So then we find ourselves stressed out. We find ourselves doing things, exactly, Duran, we're still human, right? Doing things that we may not like to do. We find ourselves in predicaments or situations that may not be healthy for us. It may actually be damaging to our health, whether it's our mental health, emotional health, or our physical health. So, but each of us are very different. So my capacity may be very different than yours. And again, I may say, okay, I'm going to work this job. I may not like the way it is, but I have the wherewithal, or I have the fortitude, because I pray, because I do my meditation, I do, everything that I do for my clients, I do for myself, I try to have, supportive people around me. So I'm able, despite the environment, to be able to go in every day and do what I have to do. Or I'm able to handle a certain relationship that it's a little stressful, but I'm handling it, okay? But that's not everybody's capacity, okay? Some people, when they have pressure, or they're in environments that are very stressful, they can't deal with it. And sometimes either one, they check out, or they turn to some kind of vice, which unhealthy vice, whether it's smoking, drinking, drugs, or whatever the case may be. A lot of times, actual mental health disorders. Again, I've talked about this a lot. A lot of mental health disorders are directly related to the level of stress that a person has in their life, because they didn't have, or their capacity, it tipped over their capacity, in other words. So in other words, if they were like a Coca-Cola bottle and you kept pouring something in it and pouring into it, and pouring negativity and pouring toxicity and pouring, just pressure, all these things in there that started to overflow. And that's what happens after a while, because we're all built differently. So that person may not be able to deal with certain things that another person may be able to. And there's all types of protective factors that we can put into our lives to sort of, not, I don't want to say test our capacity, but be able to support us and help us through whatever our challenges may be. Okay? So some of the things, and I'm going to defer to my book a little bit. So this is the book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, A Journey to Awakening Your Calling. And this is my, this is Alert 31 called Capacity. And what I basically talk about is that, again, as a vessel, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty well. So if you're not continuously putting into yourself and recharging, like I talked about, I started off this talk about I went away for the weekend. And I actually, and I'm going to talk about this even more, I actually took off for the week, took off and unplugged from social media. And that's a big one. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Don't unplug right now because y'all watching my live. But you got to unplug sometime. So I went away for the weekend. I went to an empowerment conference, spirituality, prayer, declarations, music, all of the stuff that I love, that I know that refuels me, that I know that works for me. Because again, each of us are very different. You got to know what works for you, what's going to recharge you, what's going to refuel you. You got to know what stresses you out. You got to know what type of environments are not good for your spirit, not good for your soul. Okay, so that's what I'm saying about capacity. We know, just like you see signs if you go to a certain, whether it's an elevator or a public venue, it all talks about capacity. You see that big sign that says the capacity is so-and-so, so-and-so, right? 800, 300, whatever. And they don't want you to go over that capacity because of, fire codes or fire hazards and different things like that. It's the same thing like us. Hey, Asa, how are you? It's the same thing with us. When we go over our capacity, alert, 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 fire codes, fire hose, it might as well be a fire. Because guess what? Then you're out of order. You're out of alignment. And you have to know the sign. Exactly, Asa Marie, exactly. So, she spoke about, what did you say? Self-awareness, yes. So you have to be able to check in with yourself, okay? Nobody else is going to know that but you. I don't care if it's your spouse, if it's your parents. You're the best assessor of your capacity, okay? And those that are just joining, basically I'm talking about capacity like our ability, because we never talk about it so much in that form and using that word of capacity. We talk about, I'm stressed out, or you don't have certain boundaries and you need to, set certain boundaries in your life. Absolutely. But we never really use the word capacity. So I want to really drive that home. And I've referenced in my book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, I have Alert 31, which is one of the 50 transformative messages. It's called capacity. And basically, I'm talking about as vessels, as these human vessels, this body that God created us, that we're spirit beings that he's put into flesh and blood, and that how we have to take care of this vessel. Remember, we only have this one lifetime, one body, okay? One lifetime. So what are you doing with that one lifetime? And it relates back to your purpose, why you were created in the first place, why he put you on this earth, knowing your reason for being here. And the more you know that, and the more you do a soul search and what I call an excavation process, okay? Excavation process in learning who you are and why you were created, okay? But within that is understanding what works for you and what does not work for you. And that relates directly to your capacity. And I gave the example earlier for those who are just joining. Hey, LaDawn. So for those of you just joining, I was talking about the fact that, as we're all created differently, that means we all have different capacities. We can't, somebody may be a bucket full and you can keep pouring stuff and they're just tough and they got all this fortitude and they're able to deal with stuff, and their tipping point may be very different for somebody that may have a capacity that's like, this teacup. I mean, this is a very large teacup. It's cute, right? So they may have that capacity and you pour into it and then eventually it's going to overflow. We're no different, because when we're stressed out, when we have, whether it's financial problems, whether it's relationship problems, those things start to manifest as physical ailments, as, I mean, you could start getting headaches, stomach aches, heart palpitations, high blood pressure. You know, all of these things can manifest because your cup is running over. You're burning yourself out. You're stressed out. Okay, so it all relates back to what kind of environment you're in, who you are connected to, what your surroundings are like, the people that are, you know, you're connected to, and how you're interacting with those people. What is that relationship like? And that all contributes to your capacity, your ability to be able to deal with the stress and deal with everyday living. Okay? And again, my tipping point may be very different from yours. And I'm going to stress is the reason why I made this number one of my 45 messages by 45 is because I want everyone to start assessing what their capacity is, what their ability to be able to handle the day-to-day challenges of life. Because we all have them. I mean, this is just part of being a human being. There's always going to be something. For me, you know, I live in New York, and those that are watching that live in New York know the traffic here is absolutely ridiculous now. I don't know. It just seems like it's gotten 10 times worse than ever. So for me, you know, that's one of my things. I'm like, oh my God, by the time I get to my day gig, my investor, because I'm a parallelpreneur, like Lisa Nichols talks about, you know, I'm already like, okay, I need to like woosah, because I done sat in an hour and a half of traffic. Okay, so, you know, that could be, for somebody else, that can be nothing. They put their music on, whatever. But for me, it's a stressor. It bothers me, okay? But whereas there's other things in my life that, you know, probably people are like, oh my God, how do you deal with that? Just me being a therapist, they was like, you worked with kids that have mental health problems and they was violent and this and that. How'd you do that? I did it. You know, for some people, they're like, I can't even imagine. That could be beyond their capacity. So everyone is different, and it's so important in the season we're living in. You know what your capacity is. You know what your limits are. You know what your tipping point is. Exactly. I just said that about knowing your limits, Asa Marie. Exactly. And yes, you need to know, and I'm going to talk about, towards the end, you know, what you need to look for and then what you need to do. And it's not rocket science. I don't have no long checklist tonight. I'm just going to hit it real quick. What you need to do, because this is so important, especially as we're ending this year. And yes, we're getting ready to get into the holiday season. We know the holiday season can be stressful on its own. Christmas and Black Friday and family coming over, and you know, the holiday, yes, it's supposed to be a joyful time and a time of love and family and getting together with people and exchanging gifts or whatever, you know, people do. How they celebrate their different holidays. But we also know it's a stressful time. For some people, it's a reminder of what they don't have. It's a reminder of losses and people that are no longer here, either by, you know, via death or divorces or separations or whatever the case may be. And some of it is, from a financial standpoint, it's a stressful time. And, you know, people, the depression rate goes up anyway because, you know, we have something called seasonal affective disorder, SAD, where people in the wintertime, they just get, you know, depressed even more at a higher rate. And also suicide rates increase during the holidays as well. So, Asa Marie, we were right on the same page tonight. Yes, suicide rates go up this time of year. Absolutely. So, you know, this is this season and time, and I'm talking about the holiday season, but I'm talking about this season of life that we're in, period. It's so important that we know what our limits are. We know what our capacity is. So I just want to read this quote that I have, that I started off this chapter about capacity on. It says, pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. And, you know, that's, to me, speaks volume just about the time that we're living in right now. It is a deaf world, you know, and some of it is because we're so bombarded, and this reaches the capacity too. We're so bombarded with thousands and thousands. Think about all of the messages we're bombarded with every single day. That's overwhelming on its own. I mean, you talk about social media, you're talking about people calling and texting, communicating with people everywhere you go, the TV, the media. It's like, it's just too much. I mean, even going to some place like Walmart. And I remember you could just go back in the day, you just go to the store and say, I'm going to go to the drugstore and I'm going to buy, I don't know, a hair product. Now you got like 50 versions in the product lines. And mind you, I used to work in marketing. I worked on beauty lines. I used to work on Ambi, and I worked on Carson Products, which is Dark and Lovely. So, I'm coming from a standpoint where we used to, do R&D. We have our product line is about 4 products and stuff. Now it's like 15 products just from one brand. And it's just like crazy. It's so much. So you go to the, say, Walgreens, and you go in the aisle just to get some hair care or some facial something, and it's like so many things and so many products to choose from. Like triple the amount that it used to be, and I know when I was coming up younger. So it's just you're bombarded with choices, decisions, too many choices. You're bombarded with messages. You're bombarded with people. So there's a lot. There's like overflow everywhere. So sometimes even that, and it doesn't always have to be something necessarily negative. It can just be the abundance of choices and options and the things that we have to deal with, just decisions we have to make on a day-to-day basis. That can be a lot. That can be overwhelming. And I always say, I have he's 19, he'll be 19 on Saturday. I have a 19-year-old, and, this millennial, he's part of the millennial generation. And I always say, wow, they have so much more to contend with. And I know, I have one of my besties on here right now, and, her son, he's in the millennials too. He's older. My son's a god brother. We always talk about, this younger generation, they have so much to contend with. They're coming up in this information age. They're born out of this information age. Going to school now. I said, I can't even imagine going to school now. It's just so different. There's so many things that's so different. So even with that younger generation, we have to be so encouraging and supportive, more supportive than ever, because to me, we live in a society that almost breeds like almost an attention deficit disorder in everybody, especially these young people. Like, how do you help them to stay focused, to stay on task, to stay on purpose with whatever they're doing in their life when they're constantly bombarded with so much? I mean, they don't know. I mean, just the other day, I almost hit this little young man walking because he's walking. He has the phone glued to his face. He don't even see me, And I said, this is what I'm saying. It's too much. So when we live in a society that's so bombarded with so many messages, and there's so much information out there, and there's so much coming to us, how do we find that peace and that middle ground so that we don't feel like our cup is running over from just day-to-day stuff, the simple everyday things, okay? And as I said, that's aside from, challenges or life challenges that may come up, stressful things that may come. I'm just talking about everyday stuff. So when you bring all of that together and say if you have a sick loved one, or you're having some kind of relationship problems, or you're having problems on your job, or you're having financial problems, then it can just become a lot. And that's why I say you have to really check in. And that's what it's really about, is checking in with yourself. You have to check and see and say, okay, how am I feeling today? What's going on with me today? And what's happening inside my body at this moment. And you have to do that almost, I want to say, almost by the hour, especially if you're working a job and you have co-workers that may be too much, or they're getting on your nerves, or the case may be. And these things may seem trivial and small, but believe it or not, those are the little foxes that get in there and they chip away at you. Okay? And sometimes you're not even paying attention. You're not aware of it. But that's why I'm doing this live, to help you make yourself aware. Be aware. Listen to your body. Listen to yourself. Listen to those little messages that you may be, hearing, and then saying, I'm okay. But sometimes you're not okay. And when you're not okay, that's when it's necessary to do exactly what I did this week. I said, well, let me unplug for a while. And it is necessary to unplug from all of the messages sometimes. And I'm not saying you don't answer your telephone and, talk to your family, whatever. But you do need to sometime pull away from all of, the social media for a little while. Instead of going on every single day, maybe take a break, or all day, or checking in whatever people do. And I know, look, I'm on here, I have, a business, and I have to be able to be on here as well. So I understand for those that are entrepreneurs, and this is, your form of business, you have to be on social media. But just sometimes it's just necessary to unplug. And that's everything, TV, whatever. And whether you can get away and kind of, do some meditation, or spend some time around people that are going to be supportive and cheerleading you on. Like when I went away last weekend, I had the opportunity to be with my sisters my sisters from other mothers, and one of them is on here, LaDawn. And we don't get together often because they live in another state. They live in the South. I live up here in the North. And but it was refreshing because it's important that you have people around you. I mean, these ladies have known me all my life. They've known me for over 30 years. So it's rare to have those long-term relationships, especially as women. But two, it's so important to have that type of sisterhood. And I'm just grateful for them, and I'm grateful that they're in my life because, again, that's part of, of keeping yourself in a good place. You're keeping your soul fed, having sisterhoods or having brotherhoods and having good people around you that that one know you and that love you and care for you, and they have your back. That's critical because, again, we can walk out the door and there's always going to be somebody that's going to have a problem with you. There's always going to be somebody that may be gossiping or talking about you. So you have to have the balance. Life is all about balances. You got to have the yin with the yang. You always got to have, mix it up. Because as much as there's going to be negative messages, you want to make sure there's positive messages. So that's why I said we spent all this time last weekend in prayer. And look, I don't know what anybody's, spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs or whatever your case may be, but I know that's what works for me. And like I said, it's important that not only know your limits, your capacity, but what will help you when you feel your cup is running over. And try not to wait till your cup is already is spilling out already. Because usually that's what happens with us. You know how most of the time we find out that our capacity has been reached and surpassed, we end up in a hospital. And I know I have friends that they told me, you know what, Phoenix, I ended up in the hospital. This is what happened to me. But guess what? I had time to reflect. But you know what I say? Don't wait till it's time for you to reflect in the hospital. Don't wait there. Go away. Take some time. Go in the bathroom, lock the door, put some music on, light some candles. Don't wait till you end up in the hospital to reflect. But sometimes that's what it takes. Because that meant that particular sister, she waited till her capacity had already been reached and surpassed. So at the end of the day, crashing. Yep. And but Asa Marie, that's a lot of people. That's a lot, especially women, because we are always juggling. We're taking on a whole bunch. And see, for me, before I went away last weekend, that was me. I was like, because I knew, the day job, the investor, whatever we want to call it, they were stressing me the heck out. And I was like, no. And then look, I came back. I said, okay, still dealing with stuff. But I'm able to deal with it because I did go and take some time to recharge. But I know me right now. I check in with myself because I do different practices to make sure, okay, here's my capacity, here's my boundary. And guess what? Once you know what it is, you need to let your people that's around you know what it is too. Yes, LaDawn. Yes, 9 to faint. Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. One of the things that Dr. Cindy Trim kept saying, and it's right on. He said a lot of us are working these jobs, and we're working, spending 8 plus 10, 14, whatever hours. She said working 9 to faint, not 9 to 5. I love that. It's true. 9 to faint. And that's what a lot of us are doing. We're killing ourselves sometimes because we got to make them the coins, the dollars, and I get it. Like I said, by all means, this is nothing to tell people to go and just drop their day job or whatever. But, balance it. Take care of yourself. Know your capacity. Set your boundaries, whether it's with your coworkers, whether sometimes it got to be with your boss. Sometimes it got to be with your children, your spouse, or whatever. You have to set boundaries. You have to be able to say no, and it's okay to say no. No it's very powerful, and no can be said capital N-O with a period. No explanations, because that's another thing. A lot of times we feel, especially as women and as caregivers, that we have to explain why we need to take time for ourselves. We have to explain why we, should go somewhere and go and recharge ourselves, and then we want to make a bunch of excuses. I'm not making any excuses. Ending 2017 and going into 2018, there's no excuses. There's no excuses for my peace of mind. There's no excuses for my health. Okay? Because if I drop dead tomorrow, I'm like, then what? Exactly. Unapologetically winning. Exactly. It's none of that. It's unacceptable. That's one of my favorite words. That's my husband. I use it all the time. That's unacceptable. And you have to be that vigilant about your life, about your health. You have to draw the line in the sand when it comes down to what you are able to deal with, your capacity, knowing what that is. So putting it simply, just to wrap this up, is like this. Say no with a period. Be unapologetic about, your time away and time to recharge and refuel. Don't feel you have to explain everything. Yes, with your jobs, yes. I'm not saying go in and tell your boss, look, I'm going away and that's it. No, you still do things in decency and order. But at the end of the day, if you have time on your job or whatever, you take that time. You take a mental health day. Mental health days are so important. They are critical. Okay, I use them well. Because at the end of the day, you have to know that, okay, maybe I'm just not, if you're starting to snap at everybody, your kids, and maybe some of you, I'm a supervisor, so I'm snapping at my staff, and they're like, whoa, they really don't see that from me. That means it's time for me to go and take care of me. Okay? Because then, you're coming out of your element because you're stressed, or you're overwhelmed, or your cup is starting to run over a little bit. So recognize those things. Listen to your body. And so I don't know how much I have to stress that, especially as women. Listen to your body. Listen to that voice in your head that's saying, hey, alert, alert, there's something going on here. Don't end up like my sister. I think she jumped off of here. Ended up in the hospital before she said, oh, wait a minute. Let me sit back and reflect that I'm not doing the right thing by me. I'm putting my kids first. I'm putting my spouse first. I'm doing all of this, doing the most. And she ended up in the hospital. I mean, if if you're a young, healthy person, you shouldn't be ending up in the hospital because you done just broke and burnt yourself out. But it happens all the time. We do it all the time. We do the most. We do too much. And then, at the end of the day, you got people pulling on you. Sometimes you just have to say, hold on, wait a minute. Why don't you try to take care of that for you? Okay, I'm here to support you, but you do that. I can't take on your stuff and my stuff too. It's okay to say that. Okay, self-care is paramount. And I brought up the holidays. I can't stress it enough. The holidays is usually when people are running around with the head cut off like a chicken, just running around crazy, spending up all their money, maxing out their credit cards, and then they stressed out because they got bills. Okay, don't do that. Let's use wisdom. And that's a lot of this, when it comes down to capacity. Use wisdom. Use wisdom about, your health. Use wisdom about your money. Use wisdom. Try to prevent the things that are going to cause stress in your life. I guess that's the best way to put it. That's going to cause you to be in a place where you're not taking care of yourself, or you're not monitoring what you're doing and how it's impacting your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. And this seems, to me, it's a simple message, but it's a message that we often make it very trivial, and we don't we don't think about it like that. We're just like, oh, we just go on with life. But sometimes, and especially now, you need to stop and think, okay, is this good for me? Is this working for me? Is this going to be beneficial for me? Exactly. Wisdom, it says it all through, whether you read the Bible or the good book or not, it says all through there. Get wisdom. Get wisdom first among all things. Why? Because that's going to help you make those right decisions. That's going to help you when you have a choice and you're faced with a choice that's going to impact your life some way, either positively or negative, because that's really what decisions are all about. Think about it. Your life right now is a result of all the decisions that you have made up to now. I want you to sink that one in. So if you're looking at your life and you're like, not really liking the way things are right now for one reason or another, think about your decisions that you made that led up to right now. And it's important for you to sit and have the time to turn off the noise, to have the time to yourself, to be able to have those type of reflections, especially as we're closing out this year. Take time to do that. Take time to reflect. In fact, I've been referencing my book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, for a couple of people that just joined. One of the things that I have in the beginning of the book, if I can find it, is a time capsule. And I don't know if I can see if I can show it. But I have like a time capsule. I don't know if y'all can see that. And basically, the time capsule is really what I'm talking about. It's like an excavation, like, when people go out and they dig for artifacts and archaeologists and all that stuff, and they go out. It's the same thing. It's the same premise of doing that with your life. Learn about you. And how do you learn about you? You look at your past experiences. You look at your past decisions, your past choices. You go through your life. And the way I set up the time capsule, I said, for as many decades that you've been on this earth, look at each decade. Even, start from when you was a child. And look at that, because all of that has an impact on who you are and your ability to handle life. And that's the reality. Okay? And this talk has been about capacity. Your capacity is based on how you were raised, your life experiences, and partially, just how you've been designed and engineered by God, your personality and all those different things. Those are the things that make up your capacity, okay? Because, I'll just, again, I'll use me, iMessages. When I was in my 20s, and, I seemed like I had a stronger capacity to be able to deal with things. But I think when you're 20, you just feel like you're invincible. So it might have been an age situation. But I think also part of it is that as you go on in life and you have more experiences, both bad, good, in between, that it can chip away a little bit. Especially if there's more negative than positive. Depending on what those experiences may have been. So all of that relates to your ability to be able to deal with life. Not just life challenges, but even everyday life. Making decisions and choices and your work life, relationships, and so forth. So all of that is very important. That's why it's so important to go back and take a review. And that's why I call it an excavation. Look at your life. Go do some digging. Do some reflective, a reflection on your past. Because all of that is communication, and it informs your present as well as your future. Like I said, you want to know why and what things, how your life looks today, and whether you are happy with it or not, is all based on your decisions that you made up to this point. It's so critical. So capacity is something it's a part of who we are, but it's so important. It's almost like a memo to yourself, okay? When you are able to identify, okay, this is for me, this is not for me. I can't be in this type of environment, I can be. These are the type of people I need to be around, these are type of people I don't need to be around. That's where capacity comes in. And once you learn that much about yourself, then you have created and designed the type of life that will produce the results and the outcomes that you want. That's why it's so important. So I encourage, everyone, one, share this video, share this live with whoever you think may need this message. Because again, I think we have these conversations about life and about stress and, how to deal with people and, things we don't like, but we never really put it all together and really think about it in the text or the context of capacity and how important that is, especially for us to be able to live a purpose-driven life, which is what it's all about. We all want success. We all want to be happy and have joy in our life and have good relationships and, make good money and, be able to live the life that we want. To me, you can't do that without knowing your capacity. So that's why this is so important. So yeah, put more comments if any thoughts and questions come up, Hey, Catrice, thanks for joining. Please, I'm getting ready to wrap up, so please, watch the replay, share the video, share the live video. I just think it's a very, very important message, especially as we close out the end of this year and we're getting ready for 2018, which is going to be an amazing, amazing year. But it's going to also be a year that I think defines each one of us. Like, whatever it is we're supposed to do, we need to be on that path right now. And if you don't know what your purpose is, this is, again, this comes up plays into what I was talking about as far as knowing your capacity, so you can start to define and know what your purpose is. If you know what your purpose is, this gets you focused, this gets you on point, this gets you, in a place where you get that broom out and you start sweeping the things out of your life that are making your capacity overflow, and not a good way. That cup is running over. So, this is the time. This is that last quarter of the year. We're winding things down. We get ready to go into the holidays. Take the time. And I was referencing my book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, Your Journey to Awakening Your Calling. That have different exercises in there that really helps with this whole excavation process of reflecting on your past and your decisions and your experiences, to really help you fine-tune what's for you, what's not for you, so that you can live the purpose-driven life. That's what it's all about. And so I thank everyone for joining. This is number 1 of my 45 by 45. Those of you who are just joining, I was letting everybody know that 5 years ago I did a 40 by 40, and I did 40 transformative messages on Facebook, which pretty much was like the whole premise and sort of like a prelude of what turned into my book, which is 50 transformative messages, excerpts about how do you, basically you're defining what your purpose and why you're created and your reason for being on this earth. Why did God create you? And that's really the work that I do, as a healer, as a holistic therapist, is to help people to heal mind, body, soul, spirit, so that they can live a purpose-driven life. This is just one of my healing tools. So I'm doing the 45 by 40 because this is my 45th year, and I have no problem with saying that. And so I decided to do 45 messages within the combination of live FB lives as well as posts. So look for those. And I'm a little behind schedule because my birthday is December 29th. So I'm a little behind schedule. So you'll probably see some doubling up of messages. And how do we get the book? Oh, you can get the book on my website, ahealershaven.com. I will post it in the comments at the end of this, ahealershaven.com, and you go to the shop, the shop link, and you can order it through there, and I can ship it right out to you. Okay? So, yes, look for my 45 by 45, If you don't have my book, get it. Look, it's gift giving time. Get it for somebody. It's a very small read, and it's only 100 and something pages, 50 transformative messages. Just to really help you discover, define, fine tune what your purpose is, why God has created you. It's broken up into 4 sections: spirituality, healthy relationships, self-development, and why am I forgetting one? I should know my book, right? Health and healthy relationships. Yes, and that's it. I think I said 4. So anyway, but get the book. It's awesome. And I'm not just saying that because it's my book, but the feedback I've been getting from those who already bought it, they just very positive feedback and how they're helping. A lot of them use the time capsule, which I spoke about earlier, to really reflect and go through each decade of their life and just jot down all the different things, different experiences. And I have like thought-provoking questions to help you journal. There's a lot of journaling exercises in the book as well. And like I said, you can get that at ahealershaven.com. I will put the website in the, hey Miranda, in the comments at the end. Okay, so thank you for joining the Sunday Soup, and I will see you all next time. Blessings.